everybody, it's Qckcknd, and it is time for a freaking storytime video. And I'm gonna jump right into it because I get a ton of requests by people who say, how do you deal with people in the public who bother you about your tattoos and touch you because of your tattoos and are physical and angry? And there's no broad answer for this, and there's no single sentence explanation, but over the last weekend, I went on vacation, and I would love to share a story that happened to me on my vacation where it was definitely because I was tattooed, and I'll get into it, and maybe you can just listen. Maybe you don't have tattoos, maybe you can't relate, maybe you're offended by this, and whatever, like, I just have to say it because it happened to me, and this is how I dealt with it. Last weekend, we went to the Poconos, and I told myself it was going to be a social media free weekend. I did not pick up my phone almost the entire time. All of the pictures I had posted on social media about our vacation were either taken on my boyfriend's phone, which is really low quality, or taken on my camera. So I was social media free, and I was just trying to enjoy the best of my vacation. I didn't bring a purse anywhere. It was amazing. It was just all good vibes. If you're unfamiliar with the United States or Pennsylvania, the Poconos are an area of Pennsylvania that are coveted for being a great lake vacation, campgrounds, mountain ranges, greenery. We stayed at a campground, which is a big campground, but it also had different sections depending on like what you wanted. You could rent a cabin, you could rent like a little bungalow, or there were also kind of like hotels on the campground, and they were kind of just like hotel rooms, not like a 10-story fucking hotel thing. Just like a little 3-story, you could just get a little hotel room with a bed and a little kitchenette thing, and that's where we stayed. We took full advantage of all the different things the camp was offering. We did swimming, we rented golf carts, mini golf, fireworks, lake attractions. They had a little workout area where you could run on a treadmill, lift weights from the 70s, so we did everything we could on the little roster. You're perfect, you're a perfect young man. That was our vacation. So, if any of you guys are familiar with the Poconos, I would say backwoodsy is kind of a phrase for it. I think a lot of people from Philadelphia, which is the city I live in, travel to the Poconos for vacation. A lot of people call it going up the mountains. Being in a little backwoodsy place as we were, being a heavily tattooed person, definitely got me some stares, some looks, some kids talking to me, but overall I felt really cool, and I normally don't. In Philadelphia, I kind of feel like I'm a little freaky, but it's a little more common to see a tattooed person in Philadelphia. Also, just as a woman, I just usually feel like I receive a lot of negative attention, being a tattooed woman, etc., etc. However, being in the Poconos, I felt like strutting around, having my tattoos. It kind of gave me like some authority, and I was really into it. I felt completely at rest and at ease. Being tattooed there was whatever. We walked around in our bathing suits, in shorts, and if any of you guys are familiar with this phrase, vacation clothes, you can bet yourself that I was hanging out in my vacation clothes. What are vacation clothes? Well, have you ever gone on vacation and just kind of seen like a mom or a dad or whoever just letting it all hang out? You don't care, you're on vacation, you're having a great time, you're wearing those short shorts, you're wearing that tube top, you're wearing that bathing suit, and you don't care who sees. It is a time to let go of your shame and your inhibitions and should just let go. I myself partake in the old festivities of vacation clothes. I am a woman, not of bust, but a woman of booty. And normally, throughout the year, I have tights on until it's too hot to manage, and then usually I'll wear skirts with a little bit of length. There aren't a ton of shorts that fit me the way I like to comfortably have my shorts fitted. Same with clothing, you know, hide my tattoos most of the year, whatever. Vacation clothes, completely different story. I had on my little high-waisted black shorts. They're not form-fitting, they're a little loose, a nice linen forgiving fabric for the hot weather. And then I also packed some tank tops, vacation clothes. I love my vacation clothes. When do I get to wear them? I can't wear them around my neighborhood because people will see me. Vacation clothes, you're never gonna see those people again. Ever. It's a blessing. I was swimming with no inhibitions, just happy. I did notice I was the most tattooed person swimming there, but it was awesome. When you have a ton of tattoos, sometimes children flock to you and they talk to you, and sometimes it's interesting. However, here's the story. My boyfriend and I, we are checking off everything that the campground has to offer, just knocking everything off. We had not had a vacation this year, almost ever. My schedule does not really lend itself to vacationing. So we decide to do mini golf, like a 19-hole mini golf course. It has obviously been at this campground for years and years, and we are just happy to be a part of it. We start at hole 1. We're having a great time. We get to like hole 4, and we're like basically playing by the rules. You know, if my ball was this close to the hole, John gave it a little kick in the hole. Other than that though, basically playing by the rules. Each course, as you kept going, contained more obstacles, traps, like dead holes. If your ball went into it, you know, the game was over. A lot of mini golf courses offer stuff like this. So John and I, we're strategizing, we're figuring things out, we're having a good time playing mini golf, waiting until sunset so we can do something else. Just enjoying our leisure as vacationers do. We get to about hole 5, and I realize there's a little girl behind me, and she has 2 sisters, and then her mom is with them. And she puts her ball down next to mine. And I kind of like laugh a little bit. I'm like, oh, are you playing mini golf too? Like, trying to be nice. I don't have to be. I don't know. I don't have to be. So she puts her ball down in the little place where you set your ball up, and she putts it. And I go, oh, excuse me, like, we're still playing this hole, you'll have to wait your turn. And the players playing before us, so if we're like at hole 4, the family at hole 5 turns around and kind of looks. And I'm not causing like a disruption, I'm just telling that little girl, like, gotta wait your turn, baby. We move on to the next hole, the people at 5 move to 6, we wait our turn, then we move to 5, and ideally, the like triplet girls would wait their turn too. We get to the next hole, same problem. The girls set up and they start to putt through our game. And normally this wouldn't really be an issue if we knew that family, or if John and I weren't playing by the rules and we were drinking all day or whatever, but we weren't, and we were trying to just play the game, I guess ideally by the rules. John putts, I putt, we each putt until we get the ball in the hole, and then you move on. I, again, repeat myself, like, I'm sorry, sweetie, like, we're still playing this hole. So the mom at the hole after us turns around and actually interjects, and she goes, hey, you have to wait your turn. So I'm like a little like, uh-oh, like, I hope I didn't start any problems here. And I look to the little girl's mom, and I can tell that, like, she doesn't speak English. And I tried to add a ton of sensitivity to the language I'm using because of that. It's not her fault, and she can enjoy her vacation just as much as I can, being an English-speaking person. However, I am trying to enjoy the game that I paid for this mini golf thing. So I can tell the mom yelling at the daughter, and then the mother who doesn't speak English is kind of just like, whatever. And I can kind of tell that they're like speaking Russian. We continue, and we get to a hole that has like a booby trap. So my boyfriend and I are trying to like strategize through the booby trap and whatever, and the girls come and pick up my ball and hand it to me. And I'm like, oh, excuse me, like, leave my ball right there, it's still in play. And the three daughters speak English. You know, they're just like standing there and they're putting their ball, and the one daughter starts pulling on my shorts. As I said, I'm a woman of booty, and although I'm not wearing shorts that like cut like this, like, I do still feel like my personal space is being jeopardized. Even though this is a young girl, maybe 8 or 9, I still don't feel comfortable having her hand essentially that close to a private area of mine. So I'm going, oh, excuse me. And this is when I look at the mom. And the mom is just taking photos on her camera the whole time. Obviously, she's not teaching her daughters how to play mini golf. Maybe she doesn't know how the rules work. And I'm kind of just like taking in everything that's happening around me, and I'm kind of just like, this is rude. This is really rude. But maybe there is like some cultural interference, so I'm trying to be sensitive to that. Although I do feel like her daughters are prodding at me, they're touching me, and I do not like it. Get to the next hole, same thing. The daughters are throwing their ball through it. They're not even like putting through, so obviously they are right up against us while we're waiting for our hole each time. So the oldest daughter points at my inner thigh where I have a tattoo of a swimmer girl. And although I have pants on, I can tell you that this tattoo is right here. And these are like baggy pants, but this is still my inner thigh. It's still really close to somewhere I don't want hands. Children's hands, anyone's hands. So the girl points at my inner thigh and she's physically touching me. And I turn around and to look at the mom. And the mom is laughing. And it's not a laugh like, oh my god, I'm very embarrassed of my daughter, I'm so sorry. Because I recognize that and I can pick up on that and I can exchange like laughter or, oh, it's okay, or like, kids. I can do that. And I'm used to doing that. This was a mom who was laughing at me. And I was feeling very physically embarrassed. I felt my face getting red. I felt like I was being violated by these 3 children who were ruining my game, physically touching me, trying to pull on my shorts, I guess to see if I had more tattoos under there. I'm looking at the mother ahead, who yelled at the mother before, and she's completely lost it. She's very upset. The little girls have ruined her game too, and I'm just wondering what my social obligation is. We get to the next hole, and the girls have already set up their balls. My boyfriend at one point kicked one of their balls out of our game because it was just like so tireless that these girls were just infiltrating our game. We were at hole 13 at this point. I remembered this. So all through those holes, the daughters were climbing up my ass, touching my tattoos, pulling on my shorts, throwing their ball through the game, picking up my ball. And I just remember thinking, like, they're not 2-year-olds, they're like 10-year-olds. So this is blatantly wrong, and the mother had not said anything yet. So at this point, I turn around, and I climb down the hill, and I go, "Excuse me, miss, I have to talk to you." And the mother, in English, replies to me and says, "Yes?" And I'm like, so this whole time she's speaking Russian to her daughters, and I know that this is like a stereotypical thought to have, but this whole time I come to the realization that she's probably speaking to them about me. And I know that it is very full of yourself to have that thought that, oh, someone who's speaking a foreign language around me is talking about me. But she could communicate in English to her daughters. I know she's probably trying to speak her native tongue to them and preserve the culture. However, up until this point, I thought she didn't speak English, and I thought that all of this behavior I was just like letting slip under the rug. I felt like this whole time I was being mocked. So I go, "Excuse me, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the rules, but you have to wait your turn until you can come onto the hole until we're completely done. Your daughters continuously keep touching me and pulling on my clothing, and it's making me severely uncomfortable, and it is inappropriate." And John is looking at me, and the mother head is looking at me, and I'm raising my voice, so I'm assuming that the eyes of the campground are on me. I'm wearing a tank top and shorts, and I recognize that I am standing out, and people are probably expecting me to say something inappropriate, but I think that I have an understanding of how to tell people that they're being inappropriate in inappropriate wording. So I look at her and I hold my ground. And my voice isn't wavering because I'm so sick of this. It's completely inappropriate. And I think that although it's probably hard to have 3 daughters, being on your phone the entire time and just like letting them do free range is inappropriate. So they ruined my game. They physically touched me. They touched my inner thigh. They tried to pull down my shorts. And I was sick of it. And the mother goes, "Thank you for bringing that to my attention." And I feel like it's such a slap in the face because I felt like I was being spoken down to, I was being degraded for being tattooed, I was being treated like a novelty. And honestly, if I was like a hot babe and someone was pulling at my shorts with no tattoos, I think it would be immediately noticed as inappropriate. But I think because people treat me as a walking novelty, the mother thought it was hilarious. And to the best of my knowledge, she probably took pictures of it too, because she was going off with that phone and she didn't have the camera sound turned off, which already is weird. Turn that thing off. So after that, John looked at me and he's like, "Do you want to leave? Like, let's not continue being here. Obviously, we shouldn't be here." And I thought, hey, like, we paid for the game, and now I just yelled at this woman. So I was like, let's continue putting. But it only took 2 holes later for the little girls to completely ruin our game all over again. They set up their balls next to ours, and John took the putt and moved both of their balls the other way, and he was like, "Let's go." So we essentially just abandoned the game, but before we walked off of the hill, I looked right at the mother, and we had rented a golf cart, and we drove away into the night. And although, obviously, like, there was no solace, like, there was no resolve, I still think it was completely inappropriate. And I recognize, like, kids don't know better, and a parent can only do so much. But her physically touching me, trying to pull on my shorts, laughing hilariously at me was completely inappropriate. And yelling at her, but not yelling, speaking to her with appropriate language felt good, and I think I said it loud enough for everybody to hear. But eventually we did leave because it only took 2 holes for her daughters to completely disregard what I said and just do whatever the fuck they wanted. So yes, we left, and I wish I could offer you guys like some sort of like victory story. I mean, renting the golf cart was badass, so I'm glad we spent more time on it. But that is what happened, and I do not think it's appropriate for children to inappropriately touch you. And although I have some lenience because I do recognize that children see my tattoos and they're colorful and questionable, and maybe their parents don't have tattoos and they're not subjected to tattoos very often, I do have an allowance for that. We spent a lot of time in the pool that day, and I think that I am nice to children. I don't have a responsibility to them. I don't have to be nice to them, but I have 4 siblings. I think kids are cool, and a lot of times, like, if stuff's happening, I'll most likely ask a kid before I ask an adult. I'll be like, yo, what's going on? Even when we got to the holes, there was like a cool little kid putting in front of us, and I was like, hey man, is the wait long? And he was like, not really. Like, I'm more into talking to a cool kid rather than some shit mom who's just on Facebook and not teaching her kids how to play mini golf. She's just novelizing her kids, novelizing me, and expecting me to teach her kids some sort of life lesson about touching physical people. So, in all, that's what happened this weekend, and I'm pretty upset by it. The rest of the night, I was like very noticeably upset. We saw fireworks, so like that was really cool. Good thing we saw those, because I still think I wish I would have said more to that mom. I didn't step to her, I didn't freak out, I didn't curse in front of her kids, but she just completely disregarded me, and after 2 holes, just let her fucking brat kids do whatever they wanted. Being a mom isn't easy, I get it. I totally get it. But that was inappropriate. That's my experience with that. It's not a happy ending, and I can't offer you much resolve, but I am glad I stood up for myself, and we did physically have to leave the hole. I didn't tell management because it was honestly like just a kid my age in a cabin, and he didn't even have a radio, so that sucks. So I didn't want to bother him. What's he gonna do? Give us a refund? It didn't matter. Let me know in the comments what you would have done if you've been in a situation like that. If you are a parent, what is the most embarrassing things your kids have ever done, and what have you done to resolve the situation? The mother did not even say sorry to me. She just said, thanks for bringing that to my attention, which is completely rude, completely inappropriate. Let me know what you think. Am I blowing this out of proportion? I'm sure some of you guys are gonna say that, but honestly, when you feel a little hand reach up into your inner thigh, honestly, I should have smacked it, because that is my honest reaction. That's my physical first reaction to something like that. Obviously, I wouldn't smack a little girl's hand. I quickly turned around to understand what was happening, but still, inappropriate touches from children and adults, still inappropriate and unwarranted, and having tattoos does not excuse it. I love you guys so much, and until next time, see you. Hey everybody, it is Qqcknd, and welcome back to 5 Fact Friday. It is a bazillion degrees outside. I think it's 97 degrees